2 years have gone by since the horrific Hamas invasion of Israel on October 7, 2023, and Israelis are mourning, they're grieving. Today they're remembering what they've been through, but they're also thinking about the successes, the accomplishments after 2 years of war, but they want this war to be over. The big question is President Trump's 20-point plan the plan that's going to bring this war to an end, bring all the hostages home, and force Hamas to lay down their arms and surrender? Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News. I'm in Denver. I'm not in Israel. My wife and I were planning to be back in Israel to remember this dark day. We were, of course, there in Israel when it happened on October 7th, 2023, and we've been there for most of the war over the last 2 years, except when we come and travel and speak to churches and evangelical leaders and so forth around the United States and around the world. We're here right now because my mom has just passed away at the age of 85, and we are preparing for her memorial service coming up on Monday. So, but I want to walk through on this day, the 2-year anniversary, kind of where are we in terms of the national mood in Israel, and is this plan the right plan? Is the Trump plan the right plan? Is it going to work? Is it good? Is it deceptive? Is it, are we being lured into something? So let me deal with some of those. First, I actually think that the national mood in Israel is resilient, but the country is definitely exhausted. 2 years of war, the IDF is not built for long wars. If we have to fight, we want to fight for 6 days and rest on the 7th. That's sort of the model. But Israelis, they want to win, but they want the hostages back, and they want this war to end. The most recent polling indicates between 2 and 3, and 3 out of 4 Israelis want this war to end. And what they feel a tension between, does ending the war mean leaving Hamas in place? And what the Trump deal offers is something that Israelis are quite excited about. They're very high polling. Israelis are very supportive of the Trump plan, because what Trump is doing is basically saying Hamas has to surrender. They have to lay down their arms. They have to either renounce terrorism and renounce violence and turn in their arms and commit to being a peaceful citizen, or they can leave. They can have amnesty if they're willing to renounce violence. You could say, well, do they mean it? Well, if all the weapons are taken out of Gaza, then that's the open question, right? Hamas also in the plan has the opportunity, each Hamas member, to say, I want to leave and go to some other country, and they get amnesty too. Israel can't arrest them or kill them. So, but the plan insists, it demands Hamas surrender, and Hamas has allowed no role in a future government or civic entity, structure, governing structure in Gaza. Not only is Hamas not allowed to have any role, but the Palestinian Authority is not allowed any formal role in Gaza unless and until the Palestinian Authority submits to the type of massive, fundamental economic and political reforms to get rid of the corruption, to get rid of the support for terrorism, what was known as pay to slay, in which the families of terrorists who have Jewish blood on their hands are actually given welfare stipends, more if you've killed more Jews. And that is just horrific, and it's just absolutely wrong. The Palestinian Authority would also have to stop putting anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, incendiary teachings in their textbooks in the schools, and take this out of the media and take it out of the mosques. And there's a lot of reforms, and President Trump had laid out a number of those reforms in past years, and there's a number of other think tanks and organizations that kind of laid out what would that look like. The PA would have to commit to those things and do them before they're allowed to be involved in any way in running Gaza. You have to remember, the Palestinian Authority was in charge of Gaza back in 2005 when Israel unilaterally withdrew all of its soldiers and all of our civilians out of Gaza and turned Gaza over to the Palestinians. It turned it over to the Palestinian Authority. And what did the Palestinian Authority do? Well, it promptly lost control of Gaza to Hamas. And then we got the nightmare that we've gotten. So this is a very interesting element of the President Trump's plan. And what's even more interesting is that the Trump plan has not only the support of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who basically gets every single thing he wants in the plan. It's one of the reasons I like it, because I think it accomplishes Israel's war aims. Gaza will be demilitarized, de-radicalized, de-Hamasified, and the Palestinian Authority, the corrupt Palestinian Authority, isn't allowed to participate. And then reconstruction, and then a better life for any Palestinian who wants to live there. They don't have to be forced out the way President Trump was saying a few months ago in February. Palestinians can leave. Remember, Jordan and Egypt didn't want Palestinians to be able to leave. They wanted them to stay in Gaza, which I always thought was really quite terrible, with all my love and respect for the leadership of both of those countries and for the countries. In this plan, Palestinians won't be forced out of Gaza. They can leave Gaza, and they could come back later. When Gaza's nice and beautiful, as President Trump says it will become, they could come back and settle there. So Israel doesn't get to occupy or annex or own Gaza. So when we talk about Zephaniah chapter 2, rather, where the Bible prophecy says that at some point Gaza will be completely abandoned by the local population, and Gaza will be turned back over to the ownership and control of the tribe of Judah, which is modern-day Israel. That's going to happen someday, but it doesn't happen according to this plan, not in the near future. So there is a lot to really like about this plan. What's fascinating is not only does Netanyahu like this plan and fully endorses it, but Jordan has endorsed it, Egypt has endorsed it, the Saudis have endorsed it, the United Arab Emirates have endorsed it, the Bahrain, Morocco, Turkey, and Qatar, two countries I do not consider allies. President Trump does consider them allies and speaks highly of them. I do not see President Erdogan or the Emir or the Prime Minister of Qatar as being good allies at all. But they're being useful in Trump's view now to put all this unified pressure on Hamas. This is it. You've forced this war on the region. You brought tremendous devastation to the Palestinians as well as to Israelis and others in the region, and that's it. We've given you every ceasefire opportunity, all kinds of opportunities. You have not agreed to anything. Israel has agreed to everything, and the entire region is now unified enough. When I say the entire region, obviously the Iranian regime wants to continue to foment the war, wants it to go on forever, but everybody else, including Turkey, including Qatar, not healthy allies in this process, but they are at the end, and they are saying it's time to force Hamas to surrender. Now, so that's the good thing, and Israelis support this plan and want it to work, and I think many Palestinians, as they're reading the plan and beginning to understand it, they are a growing support of it as well. Palestinians in Gaza, I haven't seen any credible polling out of Gaza yet, but you see demonstrations on the streets, you're seeing social media. Now, here's the question. Is Hamas going to accept this? They sort of tentatively said yes over the weekend, but we have a lot of questions, and we want to talk through a bunch of other things. Many Israeli commentators and analysts and even people in the legislature thought, no, that's a no from Hamas. It might be a no, but President Trump, remember, he is a deal maker, and he wants to get Hamas to yes. And so if Hamas is saying, in principle, yes, but we have questions, we want to negotiate a few more things, Trump is saying, fine, let's talk. But you don't get to talk forever. But we can, yes, there are obviously technical details of ending the current fighting and exactly where would the hostages all be released to. And that's the deal, by the way. All the hostages get released in 72 hours once the deal is finalized. That would be amazing. Could that happen this week, next week? We don't know. But here we are on the second year anniversary of the horror of October 7th, where 1,200 Jews were slaughtered, more Jews slaughtered in one day than any day since the Holocaust. there is a sense that maybe this could be it. Maybe we're just days away from getting all of our hostages back. That would be amazing. That's what we should be praying for. That's what Lynn and I and our colleagues are praying for at All Israel News and the Joshua Fund and at the Rosenberg Report. But I want to close with this thought. We'll put a link in the article that's connected to the video to the full 20-point plan. I encourage you to read it in detail. You'll see that there's an international stabilization force, an ISF, basically a security force that would be set up of international and Palestinian and Arab security experts that are committed to really de-radicalizing and demilitarizing Gaza. Now, that would take a lot of trust on Israel's part, but Israel would basically only recede back to Israeli borders as the ISF proves neighborhood by neighborhood, section by section, that it actually was doing what it says it would do. And there, of course, would be an international body to put together a group of Palestinian technocrats, not connected to Hamas and not connected to the Palestinian Authority, to put together a government. But all of that would be overseen by two people, President Trump at the top, making final decisions, and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, who has been a real advocate for peace in the region, although people have different views whether, how useful he was at certain moments. But generally, he's perceived as a fair player and supportive of Israel's security needs. So those would be the two people overseeing the day-to-day operations. Last part, there would be a huge economic and rebuilding and reconstruction plan for Gaza. But here's the thing. If Hamas says yes in the coming hours or days, great. I think I will just tell you my analysis is this is a good plan. This is a plan that supports and accomplishes all of Israel's war aims and the aims of any moderate country that's part of the Abraham Accords. Now, there are a number of countries that are supporting it that aren't even part of the Abraham Accords that are quite hostile to Israel. But the fact that they're signed onto it, I don't think it's a sign that it's weak. I think it's a sign that people are sick of the war, and they're sick of Hamas, and they really see, for all the criticisms of Netanyahu, that Netanyahu keeps saying yes to every Trump ceasefire proposal, and now Trump has had it. No more ceasefire proposals. This is it. So now here's the final question. The question is this. Does Hamas say yes, really, and commit and sign on the dotted line and start doing it? Or do they say they're going to commit and, renege? That's one question. The other question is this, though. Trump has said if Hamas doesn't say yes, if they reject this, or if they're not acting in good faith, then all hell will break loose, and that Trump and the United States and all these other countries will fully support Israel finishing the job militarily. And Netanyahu says he's ready to go. He said we can do. Netanyahu said in a press conference the other day, we can finish this war the easy way, a negotiated end, or we can do it the hard way. But it's gonna end. Hamas's rule, Hamas's reign of terror, their tyranny is gonna end. Okay, so will Hamas say yes under all this international pressure, or is the Lord God of Israel going to harden the hearts of all the Hamas leaders in those tunnels so that they can't say yes? That in a sense, it's a parallel to Moses and the book of Exodus, right, where Prime Minister Netanyahu was saying, "Let my people go," and that's what Moses said, "Let my people go," and the Pharaoh said, "No, no, no, no," and it seemed to go on forever. All those plagues, all that horror, all that harm to the Egyptian people, because the Pharaoh kept saying no to letting the Jewish people of Israel leave. That's exactly, in essence, what's happening in Gaza now. But remember, at the end of that story, the Pharaoh says, "Okay, fine. But it's too painful. Just go already. I will let your people go." And then he changes his mind, because God hardens his heart, because God wants to bring about the total military destruction and judgment of the leaders of Egypt at that time and the military. Is that possible? That's what we're about to get to. I can't tell you. I don't know. But I think those are the questions. Will Hamas surrender peaceably? Or will Israel have to fight this to the end because God has hardened the hearts of Hamas so that they will be judged and vanquished and obliterated entirely. I pray for the easier, negotiated, peaceful ending, but God knows best. And I just want to lay out that analysis here as we process October 7th, 2025, the 2-year anniversary of the darkest day in modern Israeli history. From Denver, Colorado, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News.